Blessings, everyone. This is Chris Kendall from the rawadvantage.com, registered holistic nutritionist, raw food lifestyle coach, and raw chef. To kick off 2020 right, I want to bring you an epic interview with Dr. Douglas Graham, founder of the 80-10-10 diet, long-term raw vegan, fasting practitioner, all about the ins and outs of fasting, going into some difficult questions and hot topics. Let's get into it.
Baby, I like it raw. Raw Advantage likes it raw. Ooh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. Hey.
Hey guys, so today we have a huge topic, one I'm really excited to present with a good friend of mine, Dr. Douglas Graham. Hey Doug. If you haven't heard about Doug, I don't know where you've been. You know, Doug's a lifelong athlete, an expert in nutrition and health. You know, he's been a raw foodist for as long as I've been alive. We're nearing up 40 years here. He's a fasting practitioner, and he's an author of the 80-10-10 diet, which is considered one of the main books of the modern raw food diet out there, a father of the raw food diet. It's one of my friends, mentors. Feel blessed to have you here, Doug. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's a treat to get to spend time with you, Chris.
You too, man. You too. Hopefully more in the near future here. And fasting, fasting is a huge topic. I want to bust into 2020, covering it. It's a hot topic right now. A lot of people are talking about it. There's obviously various ways to fast and lots of different opinions on it, but you have a lot of experience in fasting. I know this, and who more qualified to bring you in and then ask some big questions, some tough questions. So I hope you're ready for it.
Sure. I'll give you my best.
So let's just start right off the beginning with what is fasting?
You would think that's an easy question to answer. It's actually just a bit more complicated than it might seem. Because, well, like if you open up a dictionary and look for a definition of a word, a lot of times there'll be 2 or 3 or 4 definitions of that word, and they're sometimes related and sometimes not exactly. The word fast is a word that we all use because we all eat breakfast. It's a word that we all use because we all fasten things. Mm-hmm. And those two are actually related to each other. So like most of the words in our language, or at least a lot of the critical words in our language, keywords, they originated because we needed to describe something in more detail. Like I could find a bathroom or a bus in Spanish. I can get by in Spanish, but I sure wouldn't want to have to teach somebody how to play pool in Spanish or the technical details of how to ice skate or something. I couldn't even begin, where it's the nuances wouldn't happen. So the same thing with the word fast. This word came from when people used to tie up their boats. Mm-hmm. When they went back, they wanted to find their boats were still there. And so they would fasten them with a piece of rope. Mm-hmm. Right? And you would tie it fast, or you would make fast. And so that translates into the boat just keeps doing what it's doing, which is to wait right there. Mm-hmm. All right. So when we use the word fast, typically in a dictionary definition, the word fast means to abstain from. Mm-hmm. But when we use it in the health vernacular, what we mean is to abstain from everything else but. So we say a water fast, we're actually not abstaining from water, but water's the only thing we're having. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. So if people say a juice fast or a dry fast or whatever, they mean that's the only thing they're having. What's a little different in the way that we use the word fast in the science of human health is that fasting actually is a state of deep rest. Mm-hmm. It's a state that is deeper than the rest. Like when you're running and you start walking, that's relatively resting. Or if you lay down compared to sitting, it's relative rest. But if you get into the deepest, and you go physiologic rest and sensory rest and emotional rest and physical rest, and you put them all together and you get as deep into resting as you possibly can, the state that you eventually achieve is called fasting. And that's what fasting is. It's a big rest. It's in the world, in the natural world. Nature has it set up so if an animal is running down a mountain, either away from or chasing another animal, and it breaks a leg, it's going to just lay there and fast. If we slip and fall or get hurt in some way, we just lay there and fast. And nature has it set up so that that will be the most rapid healing physiologically possible will ensue. All factors vector towards health at a more rapid rate when we fast than in any other state. And so we utilize that every night when, we wake up in the morning full of vim and vigor, and by the end of the day, you're pretty much out of steam and you're no more productivity in you, and they call it from can until can't. And then when you can't, you just go to sleep and you wake up in the morning and you can again. And it's funny because I ask people, where do you get your energy? And they invariably say food. And I go, yeah, but if you eat a big Thanksgiving meal, that makes you sleepy. But when you run out of energy, you go to sleep. When you wake up, you have more energy. So where do you get your energy? When I'm sleeping, I'm accumulating more than I'm dissipating. And then it's the deepest state of rest that you can get into, because you don't want to have a restless sleep. That's terrible.
No.
And so you get into the deepest rest you can. And in the morning, when you resume activities and you start eating again, we break fast and get back into the activities of the day. So to me, fasting equates with resting. When people tell me, I fasted on juices and I had so much energy, and so I did this and I did that, and I did all this exercise and I lifted and I was so productive, and I'm going, that's sort of counterproductive to the fast. If what you're hoping to do is give your body a chance to heal and recover from things, then get into deeper states of rest is the fastest way to do it.
Absolutely. And then that way as well, you can take the shortest amount of time to recover fully rather than a prolonged route.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to be recovering longer than they have to. They want to speed recovery as much as possible. And if you have a serious health problem, it could take weeks to recover anyway. And so, we don't want to turn that into months. But even if it's just, like you say, overnight, if you only give yourself 3 hours a night, you're probably not going to recover from yesterday's workout. Whereas, if you give yourself a full night's sleep and lots of rest, then you recover. So we're just looking at accelerating the recovery process, because when we add in physical rest and we add in physiologic rest, which means the digestive system isn't active any longer, and then we add in sensory rest, which means, like in your background, we put you into a situation where you hear bird song rather than jackhammers and trucks. You're breathing clean, fresh air rather than the air off a construction site or a sewage dump. The sounds you hear are nature sounds. The sights are lots of curved lines rather than straight up and down building block. This isn't really work well with our. They can actually do tests now to very similar to a lie detector, to check what's going on with your whole physiology, and then just show you pictures and see how it changes. And when we look at buildings, our heart rate goes up and blood pressure goes up and all the wrong things happen. And you look at fish swimming in a bowl and, it's all that calm. And, so when we see that, when I see flowers and hear bird song, so I want to put people into a place where they can see green, where they're not looking at a lot of buildings, maybe see some fish, maybe have a view with some water in it, maybe a few hills or mountains in the background. Some vistas, open vistas, are really good for our. We want to put people into as much comfortable temperature, comfortable humidity, warm sun but not burning us. You know, all of those things count as sensory rest, and then emotional rest is equally as important, because if you're worried, if you're scared, if you don't know what's going on, I could probably read a whole bunch of books and figure out how to go climb Mount Everest or how to fly a helicopter, but it would just be stupid. I'd be way smarter to have a guide in both cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fasting, the same thing. As long as everything's going well, sure, it's great. But when you need guidance, it's too late to start looking. It's like trying to learn how to swim, you know, by jumping off a ship in the middle of the ocean. I mean, you want to learn in a safe environment. You want to fast in a safe environment where somebody else can worry for you. Somebody can keep you informed of what's going on. Somebody can share their experience. To me, supervised fasting is the only way to go. I wouldn't do it any other way, unless we're talking about overnight or a day or two. But I have talked to fasting doctors. In fact, Dr. Alan Goldhammer is a friend. I've known him for almost 40 years. One day I said to him, you know, I had a person come to fast. I had to hospitalize her in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
The third day of fasting. Like, people think, oh, I could do a week on my own. Third day, hospital. And he goes, I've had to hospitalize 2 different people on the second day of their fast. So it's not that fasting is dangerous. In fact, most fasts are totally uneventful. But when they're not, or when something goes on, or when you get into a healing crisis that's perfectly safe, but you need somebody to tell you, oh, yes, I've seen that before. It'll be gone in 18 hours, or it'll be gone in a day, or whatever. Or if it's not safe and you don't know, I had a man showed up at my house one day in the back of a pickup truck, unconscious. And his wife said, oh, yeah, he's on the 23rd day of a fast.
Yikes.
And I go,
yikes.
He's unconscious. We can't wake him up. Take him to the hospital.
Yeah.
I can't get involved in something. First of all, I would need the first 23 days worth of history, but you don't start with it's when it's eventful.
Yeah.
You need somebody to go, oh, this is potentially dangerous, or this is dangerous, or we need to intervene, or we need to break this fast, or we need to take you for help. It almost never happens, but it could happen. And
that's where experience pays off in spades, right? Where you can see what's happening, and you have some protocol and some idea of where to go, what to do.
Partly because of that, but also because when you're fasting, your biochemistry changes.
Yeah.
It changes dramatically because you start producing ketones, and you're using ketones as a fueling system, and it gets really complicated. But you know, when you have one drink, you almost can't tell that it's affected you, because the things that are affected are the ones that tell you if you've been affected.
I remember when I used to drink a lot, that was true. But then when I didn't drink and I had a drink, I noticed it real quick. I noticed it quick.
You notice it more. You definitely notice it quicker. But even for people who drink a lot, they could say, oh, 2 drinks and it doesn't even affect me.
Yeah.
But it really does. It affects you a lot, but it affects those things that it affects your decision making.
Yeah.
And your reflexes, and fasting does this as well. Fasting affects the brain in many ways like alcohol does. And so it's not a time to be making life and death decisions, or even a lot of decisions about your fast. You want to have some outside evaluations and some non-biased, as you say, experienced evaluations, because otherwise it's just you're playing Russian roulette.
Yeah.
Basically.
No, absolutely. You know, I've done fasts myself, some with, some without supervision. And partially because of that, I don't recommend people fast that often unless they have that guidance and supervision, because there are so many things that affect the fast or your outcomes that are even outside of, you know, the fasting itself. And that goes into a couple more questions, but you've had a lot of experience.
So let's finish that off. And I'd say, I agree with you. I don't recommend that people fast often either. In fact, what I recommend is that they do their very best to live in such a way that fasting is never required.
Yeah.
But if it is, or you're coming in with a history, or you've tried eating all raw all the time for 6 months and you got a little better, but you didn't get all better, and you think maybe you could increase vitality or overcome a condition or improve your fitness, or whatever it is that is your area of interest that might be appropriate for fasting, or where fasting might be appropriate, then you go, okay, well, I'm not getting there either as quickly as I want to, or I'm not getting there at all. I need a little more momentum. I need a fast to put me over the top. And that's very common.
Yeah. So what are some of the conditions or situations you find are most commonly responding really well to fasting? And maybe what are some that don't really respond as well to fasting?
If I could have a clinic where the only people we took were people with arthritis, I would fast every single one of them if that was their only complaint. Mm-hmm. And probably every single one of them would get well. Mm-hmm. I've seen seriously crippling arthritis turn around in 4 weeks. People who couldn't move any of the joints of their entire body, nothing. They could move their eyes because there was no joint involved. They couldn't move their fingers, couldn't move their toes, ankles, nothing. Couldn't walk, had to be carried everywhere. Couldn't even take pressure of a blanket on top of their feet because it was, too hard on their toes. And but I've seen some very, very bad arthritis resolve in as short as 3 weeks. But that's typically the window. But if I had a clinic of just arthritis, but I say that, but if I had a clinic of just heart disease,
yeah,
I would fast every single one of them if that was their only problem. There's a lot of conditions that respond incredibly well to fasting, because that's the way nature set it up for us, is that fasting is the default condition that you would go to basically when nothing else works.
Yeah.
But having experience allows the fasting supervisor to be able to guide a potential faster and say, yes, fasting is for you, or fasting, no, try this, and this first, or gee, you could try this, and this, and all of those things will fail. I've seen them fail. I've never seen them succeed, but you can go try them if you want, but save a person a lot of wasted effort to have the experienced view.
Is there any conditions that you say you wouldn't recommend for fasting?
Oh, yeah. Fasting and nursing don't go well together at all. I mean, you're going to interrupt milk flow for sure. Even fasting in pregnancy is not something that I like to do. I have fasted a couple of people who were pregnant, but try to keep that crazy short if I possibly can. And they were so nauseous they couldn't eat anyway, so it wasn't really that I fasted them, they just couldn't eat. And so so then I taught them about other ways to accelerate that fasting period to get them past the point where they couldn't eat. But type 1 diabetics, insulin dependent diabetics, a wide variety of liver problems, I wouldn't fast. There's a wide variety of liver problems. You can go online and look up fasting contraindications and probably find 100 on the list. I'm very wary of people who have a history of certain kinds of drug use in their past, especially what are called antidepressants. Because I've seen some very bad reactions. Not during the fast, after the fast.
Oh, wow.
After the fast. I call it PADU, post antidepressant use syndrome. And I've seen almost the identical thing happen to maybe 4 people now. It's a relatively new condition because antidepressants are relatively new.
Yeah.
And so if you talk to people my age and older, they never used antidepressants because they didn't exist. But if you talk to younger people, a lot of them have had experience with antidepressants, and then they get really weird reactions. So I'm always very careful to ask, a full history of drug use. People are dependent on certain drugs. We have to be very careful, especially the steroids, various types of steroids. If we're going to try to get them off those drugs, you have to get them off very slowly. You wouldn't just like stop using them and start fasting. That could be dangerous to their health. But it's one thing to say, are there certain conditions, but really it's a case-by-case basis.
Yep, which kind of leads back to that it's important to have experience and take things case by case and have a good knowledge of where the person's at, if they're a great candidate for fast or not.
Well, I mean, you can get generic doctoring and you can read the books, how to fast and whatnot, but when it comes right down to it, you're fast. I mean, I've fasted some people 3-4 times. I think 4 times is the most I've ever fasted the same person. But no 2 of their fasts were the same. You could fast yourself 2 or 3 times, and they won't be the same. Certain things will be the same, maybe, but a lot of things will be different. And so I want to treat each faster each time as a unique situation. We don't take anything for granted, and take them through all the steps, because even if a little bit is redundant, that's better than being omissive.
So how many years have you been working as a fasting practitioner, and approximately how many people would you say that you fasted or helped through fasts?
The first fast I supervised was done in a group setting in school, in I think February of 1981. I think it was February of 81. It was in one of the classroom settings. So there's 118 people in my class, and we essentially got to supervise 117 people.
Wow.
But each of us doing all the others, and then doing all the paperwork and looking at results and talking to all the different people, and seeing how we responded to not only different fasts, but different types of fasts, different interventions during the fast. Some people wanted to do enemas during the fast, or colonics in the fast, or just juice fast, or water fast. Or, all kinds of all sorts of situations happen. But the first exposure, that wasn't my first exposure. I grew up in a Jewish household. We fast every Yom Kippur. There's actually several Jewish holidays where you fast, but only for a day. When the first day of a fast, you're very aware of the fact that you're fasting, but it's only for a day, and for these religious purposes, and so I never really counted that, but 118 people then. Since then, I don't know. I mean, when I ran Club Hygiene for a decade, and then I don't even know how many people we were seeing then, a couple of hundred a year. And since then and before then,
at least thousands.
Yeah, we're in the thousands. I mean, it's 40 years and a fair number. Even if it was only 25 people a year, you're in the thousands. But now I tend to do annual fasts and take a couple of groups, 1 group or 2 groups, and this year's group is going to be very small. I don't want to really take more than 10 people, because I want to give them the custom attention that I've learned to give, and that requires time. It requires time on my part. You can only do so much for each person. There's plenty of time when everything's going perfectly well. But when somebody has needs, it could take 6 or 8 of your hours, and you still have the rest of the day to do for everybody else. And it almost never happens, but if 2 people are needy on the same day at the same time, it gets pretty, I knew a guy who tried supervising 16 people at once.
Wow.
You know, and it was
By himself.
disaster. It was disaster. I mean, it just gets chaotic. Yeah, I always have help because I have people who want to learn about fasting. And so they come sort of as interns. I teach them at breakfast, lunch, and dinner about anatomy and physiology and how it applies to fasting and health. And then during the day, they not only attend the lectures I give, but they also help me monitor and keep track of everybody and make sure everybody, because I want to look in on a faster. If a faster's got his own room, you know, I want to look in on him 3 or 4 times a day. I don't want to just look in on him once and not check again. They get out, we say hello, but I don't want anybody to ever feel like help isn't more than a few moments away, you know, just a shout away.
Absolutely. Talking about education in terms of getting that emotional and psychological support and feeling safe, how important do you feel that education is pre and during and after a fast?
Well, I do a couple of hours of education during a fast every single day. Part of the reason why, what I used to do when I ran the fasting retreat, people would come whenever they wanted and they'd leave when they were done. And you have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 people fasting, and they're all on their own schedule, and they're all there strictly and only for themselves. When I started this group experiment to see how that would go, a lot of the dynamics are very, very different, and they favor the fasters. So it's why I've continued to do it this way, because now you get a group of people who are there supporting each other. They arrive together. They know they're going home together. They meet every single day as a group, whereas when I ran my retreat center, I would meet with each person individually and rarely do group presentations because some people were going home in a day or two and some people were just arriving, and it was very confusing to try to make that jive. So now I can tell people what to expect on day 1, what to expect on day 8, what to expect on week 3, what to expect. So every day we tell them what to expect, and every day we talk to them a little about how the body works, different parts of anatomy and physiology. And I think education is just absolutely a huge part. Too, and the reason I do is I had a teacher in school way back when, right? Dr. Andy. And Dr. Andy also worked as an EMT. And no ambulance chasing jokes, please. But he also worked as an EMT. And he taught us, he said, here's the first thing you do as an EMT. You walk up to the person and you introduce yourself. And you say, hi, I'm Dr. Doug. I'm here to help you. That's the first thing you do. I'm here to help you. And he goes, that alone could be enough to save their life. The change in the way, I mean, blood could be spurting, you know, and you go, I'm here to help you. And things just calm down, and their heart rate, blood pressure, all this stuff just calms down. And, oh, somebody's here to help me, you know. And at that point, if I can then educate them as well, you know, so that a lot of people are afraid of the way their body works. You're not among them. You know, you get banged up and you don't think something bad's going to happen. You get banged up and you just think it's going to heal, you know, or something breaks out or it does it and you go, oh, that's just my body doing its thing. But a lot of people freak when they see their body doing things. They just like, whoa, what's this? What's this? Especially when there's, you know, you're fasting, there's not a lot to do except think about it.
Start scrolling and seeing pictures or tasty things or,
So I like to stay in very, very close contact with my fasters all the time and educate them as much as I can so that they gain more faith in the fact that if we do the right things, your body will do the right things. And then the right things will happen. And then that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And I mean, that also kind of leads into how important it is to know when to break a fast and how to break a fast. I know like you hold your fasting retreats and it's feasting and fasting, right? So you have
Absolutely.
a measure of both, and I'm guessing education around that aspect of how to come back into it. But how important is it to know when to break a fast? And I'm guessing
Well,
some
it's
people,
not,
like you said, freak out, and that's probably not the best time to break a fast when you're freaking out.
it's certainly not cookie cutter, like, put it in the oven at 350 degrees for 37 minutes and it'll take it out and it'll be, cake.
Hopefully not.
It's not quite that cookie cutter. Like I say, the shortest fast I ever did for somebody with arthritis was 18 days.
Yeah.
The longest fast I ever did for somebody with arthritis was 30 days. Mm-hmm. I'd be surprised at this point in my career if somebody came to me with arthritis and I needed to go shorter than 18 or longer than 30. I'd probably be surprised, because they're almost always in somewhere during that fourth week. We see such profound changes happen that you go, you know what? It's probably time. Yeah. There are a couple of guidelines that I use for many of the things, such as, all the symptoms are gone and they've been gone for a few days, or I'm starting to feel really good and I'm thinking like this fast is probably over, and then the client will talk to me and they'll go, what do you think, doc? And I go, well, yeah, you look like you're done. It's 30, let me get my toothpick. Yeah. It's an arbitrary start to a fast, admittedly. Yeah. And it's an arbitrary finish to a fast, hopefully. We don't really like to have to force the finish. There are times where you just have to break a fast. I mean, I fasted a guy who came to me and he was nutritionally in a very bad way. He was a pretty serious drug abuser and late 30s, so much money that he never worked. He'd never worked ever in his life, and he's basically just partied, a lot of drugs, and so nutritionally he was in a very bad way, and during his fast he got to a point where I didn't try to test blood work to see what was wrong, but he just started getting crazy weak. Yeah. And I'm going, okay, for a grown man to start getting crazy weak, it's time. We can always fast you again. I talked it through with him, and he goes, yeah, I understand it. For me, if somebody gets so weak that they have to crawl rather than walk, that's too weak. They don't need to do that. There's just no need to do that. And so I'm going to take people through. I want it to be a comfortable experience. I want to get the best of a hospital and the best of a hotel, and have the two of those combined so that you have a really good experience as a fast. But even more, take sufficient time in the recovery phase from the fast so that A, we can do it properly, and B, you can start to develop some of those habits that you want to take home, because I don't want to see that person again as a faster. I want to see them happy and healthy, and breaking the fast. Breaking the fast is challenging because, as happens to pretty much everybody, at some point after the fast, you get hungry. Yeah. You get like hungry.
Really hungry, yeah, absolutely.
and the hungrier you are, the less discriminating you tend to be about what you eat. Yeah. And so this is where I see people get in trouble. I want them to work with me. We walk hand in hand. So I'll control the quality of the food. I'll control the quantity of the food. They can control when they eat. They can control basically their choice of foods. But I want to have some control on that with them for a while. So A, when they get really hungry, we can make quality food choices. B, so that they're not overeating, not undereating, because everybody comes into a fast. One of the things they talk about is their weight. Some people fast and they want to gain afterwards. Some people fast, they want to lose afterwards. We want to design their eating plan so that it fits in with their goals and their body sculpting designs as well. So then you start to pick out the fitness program that's going to match the food program to give them the physique they want to develop over the coming 6 months, year or two, whatever it is that, time frame. And if we do that conscientiously, then by the time a person goes home, they're like an 18-wheeler. They've been through all the gears, and now they're ready to just keep trucking down the highway. I know I've heard of some fasting retreats where like you come for a month and you fast for 28 days and eat for 1 or 2 and then go home, and those people invariably fail afterwards. Invariably fail. They binge. They go back to eating all the wrong foods. They get sicker than they were. They end up with new health problems and their old health problems. I mean, it's an invariable. They end up hospitalized. I've seen just so many wrong things happen if you rush the recovery or don't even provide for that. To me, I feel like I work harder during the recovery times with people. Fasting is easy, right?
That's my experience.
Do nothing. Close your eyes. Tell me when it's over. But during the recovery phase, you got to do some work. You got to rebuild some fitness. You got to learn new eating habits, possibly if you haven't already made friends with fruits and vegetables. There's a lot going on.
Absolutely. Going a little bit into that, into nutrient sufficiency, you talked about the one guy you fasted who is in a really depleted state. Is it important, do you find, for people to come to a level of health before undertaking a fast, or to get acquainted with a raw food diet or a healthier diet in order to streamline the fast itself, make it easier on them? Or what's your thoughts and feelings about that?
I mean, you've got the ideal world and then you've got the real world. In an ideal world, everybody be eating fruits and vegetables all the time, and when they choose to fast because this, that, or the next reason, they would just choose to fast, and that would be that. But most people don't live that way. They come to fasting because they have to, because something went wrong. And if you've got a health problem and you go see a doctor and you go, okay, like you're the 27th doctor that I've been to, what should I do? The first 26 didn't help me, but I really hope you can. And then you go, okay, well, let's introduce the proper diet for 3 months or 6 months or some period of time. Let's get you eating really, really well, so that you're as well nourished as possible, and maybe you can overcome the health problem. But if you don't, fasting is still an option. And that's it. That's a great way to go. And I'll do that when I have the freedom to do that. But I once was running a fast started on January 1st, and a person called me on the 28th of December. And it's the first time I'd ever spoken to this woman. It was the 28th of December, and she said, "I'm coming." And I go, okay. Well, so then you didn't have that option, but we got her off some major drugs relatively quickly. First, she came and she ate a little bit with me and helped her get off the drugs, and then got her into the fast. And that was 12 years ago. And I'm still in very close touch with this woman who's now 77 and is coming back this year to Costa Rica to fast again, because she's been through a tough time the last couple of years and kind of let her program fall apart. She goes, and she's not feeling well. She wants to start again, get it right this time. Full of vim and vigor. Just wrote a book and she's out on book tour.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that kind of leads me into another question, because saying 12 years between fasts, that's a long time, and it doesn't say anything about kind of a binge purge type behavior, right?
Oh, no.
And I've seen some people, whether it's juice fasting or water fasting on their own, come to feel so clear and so light in those times where they're fasting or juice fasting that they almost become addicted to it. I would guess this kind of goes into education as well, understanding.
See, lots of people overuse fasting, Lots
Yeah.
of
So
people. We have to understand who gets drawn to fasting, who gets drawn to raw foods, who gets drawn to vegan, who gets drawn to vegetarian. Anytime we stray from the mainstream, we're probably not attracting mainstreamers.
yeah, yeah,
They're perfectly content to just stay mainstream, and it's. I'll say this. I don't say this in a negative way, but it's the weirdos who are going to end up as vegetarians or who are going to end up as vegans, and let alone raw foodists, 80-10-10 raw foodists, and so, and
I'm a
people
little
who,
weird.
people who don't have great relationship with themselves or great relationship with their food or great relationship with their bodies. People who are out on the fringe, we draw a lot of those people, and it's not necessarily out on the fringe. Oh, that's bad. It can be out on
No.
the fringe. Look, you're out on the fringe. I'm out on the fringes. I don't consider
Yeah.
it bad in any way. We're out on the fringe, and it's Einstein was way out on the fringe, right? And
Yep.
a lot of the scientists that predate us were way out. The free thinkers,
Huge athletes as well, or
yeah, absolutely.
everything.
So it's not automatically bad, but for the people who already have binge eating habits or bad relationships with food, I had somebody call up one time, 50 pounds, can I come and fast? I'm going, you're an adult.
Yikes.
weighing 50 pounds. No, you can't come and fast. I wouldn't even consider such a thing. No. Or people with a lot of self-destructive habits, you might want to think, it would be. I had a girl come to the last program that I ran. She came and she called me up, and I knew her, and she said, "Can I come fast with you?" And I go, "Absolutely not. Fasting would be inappropriate for you. But you can come and train with me every day, and you can come and eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner with me, and you can come and help me in the kitchen a little bit, and you can come to all the educational parts, and you can be there for a month eating, and let's get you some good eating habits going rather than the random stuff she was doing." Yeah. And she goes, "Oh, I was hoping you were going to say that." And it was so odd, right? Like, she called me up and said, "Can I come fast with you?" And I said no. And then she said, "I was hoping you were going to say that."
Yeah. Well, fasting can be scary too, right? I mean, it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, it can be scary, but it can also be inappropriate. And for her, it would have been, and for her, a month of eating was just a start.
Yeah.
Really just a start. She's going to need, she really needed a year of eating, but with each person, we take it as individually as possible. And some people come all gung ho to fast, and they go, "You know what? You need to eat with me for a few days before we're going to even get you fasting, because of what you were eating before the fast." That stuff, we don't want that stuff rotting in your insides while you fast. I don't mind if some fruits and vegetables sit in your colon for a week or two, but you don't really want dead animals in there for a couple of weeks, because it's constipating. It's very toxic stuff, and we don't really want that inside while people are trying to get cleaner on the outside. Yeah. So,
well, that leads to a kind of neat question too. If we're not eating for a period of time, that's going to, for sure, to some degree, affect our microbiome. And I know fiber is very important to feed that, and that's important for our absorption. What changes happen during a fast to gut health and to the microbiome?
I can only tell you a little bit. Because a lot of this is conjecture.
Yep.
A lot of the questions that I would come up with have not been studied. Yep. So there's not good science behind that. We do know that most of the intestinal parasites will die off during the fast, and that's kind of neat, and that tells you something about the microbiome. Not all intestinal parasites will die off. there's something called liver flukes, and liver flukes won't die off. What they'll do is they'll do what they were designed to do anyway, which is to penetrate your intestinal wall and get into your bloodstream so that they can get to your liver.
Yikes.
They were going to do that whether you fasted or not. So you can't just say, you'll kill off all parasites by fasting, because that's just not really realistic. You're not going to kill off Chagas parasites either, which live on the valves of the heart, kind of like heartworm for humans. So the cool thing about the microbiome, though, is with most of these microbes, we're talking about a reproductive cycle that's so short, minutes, not even hours, but minutes. And so you can get 100 generations per day, double 100 times, until you've got 10 to the 18th power or something in the course, starting with 1, and then you have 10 with 18 zeros behind it by the end of a day. Microbes can reproduce really quickly. What we do see, though, that we know about is, for instance, most people are walking around with an E. coli content that's way too high and a lacto content that's way too low. I've seen typically is 85% E. coli and 15 lacto. Whereas when we get people fasting, we get people eating a raw vegan diet, in a matter of a week's time, we see a turnaround to where they're 85% lactobacillus, which is what we want, and only 15% E. coli, which is what we want. And that turnaround takes only a matter of days, just a few days. So good things happen, but during the fast itself, it would be very invasive to find out what's going on with the microbiome. I couldn't even tell you. My knowledge of fasting says that all facets of health, all facets of anatomy, all facets of physiology vector towards health when we fast. Digestive powers take time to build up, and our ability to uptake, most of the fuel that you consume goes to your muscles every day. And but when you've been at rest for a week or two, your muscles are in no rush to uptake that fuel. You have to create demand through physical activity, or the muscles just don't uptake. So the training process has to begin, and maybe the first day you can only uptake 100 calories worth of glycogen, and the second day 200. It could take you 3 weeks before you could get up to close to 2,000 calories worth of glycogen pumping in and out of the muscles every day. It could take several months for that to happen. It depends on the fitness level of the person, what they were beforehand. Because if you weren't fit beforehand, after the fast, you're not going to be. You might be fitter than you were before the fast, interestingly enough, but you're still not going to be world-class fitness or top-notch fitness or even as good as you want to be immediately after a fast. So I'm always reminded of that little child's toy that is a wooden man with his both hands out, and there's 2 strings.
Yes,
He goes up one, and then he goes up the other, and then he goes up one, right? And so you increase the food, and you increase the fitness, and you increase the food, and you increase the fitness, and the next thing you know, after a week or so, you're back to eating. You fasted for 2.5 weeks, and afterwards it takes a week, and you're back to eating quite normally, but not on the first day. On the first day, you eat really little, and you eat super high quality, juicy foods. There's many instances of people having forced fasts. Like there was a city under siege, and the people were forced to fast. And just before everybody died from fasting, it turned into starving. The river, the city was backed up to a river, and the river froze. And so in the dead of night, all the people in the city escaped by going across the river, because nobody was expecting them to leave that way. And when they got to the next town, which was a couple miles of walking, which is pretty good, you know,
Yeah.
but you've been fasting for 3 weeks and then you go walk a couple miles. It's a lot. But they were welcomed with open arms and fed a glorious feast, and almost everybody died from eating too much immediately after a fast. So I'm very, very careful in the refeeding process. We want to make it enjoyable, but I don't want to rush it. I'd rather be cautious.
Okay, this leads into a big hot topic as well. Some people say that after a fast, you can cause something called metabolic damage, right? And damage your metabolism in such a way that you either gain weight too easily or have digestive issues or whatnot. What's your feeling around those claims?
All factors, all features of anatomy and physiology vector towards health when we fast. You're not causing damage, but you do become more fuel efficient because you've improved the way your body processes food. You become more fuel efficient. So if you needed 3,000 calories a day to do what you normally do and maintain your weight, maybe after a fast you only need 2,800 calories a day to get the same results. Because you're more efficient in the digestive process. That was the whole point of fasting, was to become more effective and more efficient at doing what you do. So is it possible to gain weight if you wish to? Sure. You have to be respectful of the fact that you eat enough to be satisfied without eating so much that you're gaining when you don't want to be gaining. Or could you damage something? No. I mean, all that's going to happen is appropriate good things should happen. But could you end up with all these, like you said, bad digestive disturbances after the fast? Well, yeah, that's really possible because your body's way more susceptible to processing the foods you eat quickly. And if you're not paying attention to food combining because you never learned that before, you're going to suffer a bit. You're going to notice that you suffer. It's kind of like the difference between a smoker and a non-smoker. You take a smoker and he walks into a smoky room and he doesn't even notice that it's smoky. Take a non-smoker and walk him into a smoky room, they notice the smoke like crazy. So a person who doesn't really have their health at a high level, they might not notice when they don't food combine properly that a whole lot of things went wrong. You take somebody who's been feeling really good for a few weeks, they've been fasting, their system's been at rest, they broke the fast conscientiously and ate really well and had no digestive problems, and then they just go off on their own and eat everything and anything. They're going to notice that they're really suffering. They're going to notice it, because when you haven't been suffering and then you do, I mean, we become wimps to suffering. And so, it's possible to cause some unnecessary suffering. Most of it has to do with food combining, more than anything else has been my experience. If we just keep the food simple and you can eat lots of volume, but that's not the problem. The problem tends to be when we mix and match indiscriminately.
Yeah, I'd imagine emotional eating could come into play too, and some other factors like that. So,
well, again, I don't think that people have bad relationships with food so much as they don't have a great relationship with themselves, and I don't pretend to be a psychological healer or be all know all. I was trained a fair amount in psychology and as part of my medical training. And so we do look at some of those issues during the fast and discuss those. I mean, we've got time to discuss a lot of stuff. And so we spend some time on the various things that are most commonly issues with fast, including, how people treat themselves and how to, it's not fun to set goals and fail always. I want to succeed once in a while.
Absolutely.
So so being taught how to bounce back, and being taught how to be present, and being taught how to deal with a lot of it's being taught the warning signs, though. Like I tell people, if you're like those, you've heard me talk about the 4 warning signs that you're not eating enough fruit. If you're hungry in between meals, you want sweets in between meals, and you're looking for sweet at the end of the meal, or starchy food starts looking appealing, or those kinds of things. You just want something heavy after the meal. You're driven to eat nuts. All those things are telling you didn't eat enough fruit. And knowing those warning signs and what they mean is huge, because then you can say, this happened to me. I did this to myself. Let me not do that again. Let me just go eat some fruit right now, and let's start taking care of business. Because for most people, they don't realize how much fruit they really have to eat. It takes a lot of fruit.
Absolutely.
It seems normal to you and me now to eat that much. It's just normal. We don't even think about it.
No.
But we do remind ourselves, and you wear peace, love, and seasonal fruit shirts. I had one on today.
You know it.
Absolutely. And my shirt, whole, fresh, ripe, organic plants. I wear it all the time because it's a good reminder.
Absolutely. Yeah, it seems to me like knowledge of your intentions of going into the fast, as well as understanding that it doesn't start and end with a fast, but it goes into a lifestyle afterwards, could be a really big
you
component.
can fast for a month. You could fast for a month, and it's still only not even 1/10 of the year. It's not 100th of your life. It's 1% of your life. The 99% matters much, much more. And I don't poo-poo this whole. I've had people tell me, like, oh yes, but people with eating disorders should never fast because then they're going to binge. Well, no, fasting doesn't make them binge. Not breaking the fast properly, sufficiently, not learning to eat enough after. You only binge if you're hungry. Like if you're full, you're not going to binge. So you got to learning how to satisfy yourself by eating enough fruit, rather than some preconceived notion. Oh, well, I've had one piece of fruit. That's enough. I don't want to gain weight or something. I'd rather binge. It's just so breaking the fast is as custom to the individual as the fast is itself. It's got to be unique to the individual. I have not, in my experience, seen people go off on binges after fast. I've not seen that's what happens. That's I won't even say it's uncommon. It's really not what happens. It just isn't what happens. But for people who fasted on their own, I would say that's a really common thing, because they broke it on their own with no guidance. They're trying to reinvent a wheel. Hey, look, I built a helicopter. I'm going to go fly it now. And I don't know how to fly, and I don't know how to build a helicopter, but I'm going to take this thing up for a ride. I wouldn't do that. I'm just not that risky of a guy.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I did in my past, but for shorter terms, and the only fast I did with longer term was with support and guidance. And I get people messaging me on Instagram or on other channels saying like, I'm on day 18 of a fast, and they're by themselves, and all I can do is just like wishing you the best. I always think that it is very important to have that guidance and support, and all the things we talked over. I think we covered a lot of topics.
And those guys are going to go out on YouTube later on and say fasting's really bad because I fasted and then I had this experience afterwards, and
there's way more potential.
Not the way it is when it's done professionally, or the professional places would all be out of business, but they're not. Business is booming in the fasting industry.
Yeah.
For good reason.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people want health, right? And sometimes in that desire for health, they may do things half-heartedly or haphazardly rather. And it is good to have this education, to have, the knowledge that you're sharing. You have a lot of experience in this, and to be able to go to someone like yourself, to be able to, get a quality experience and see the true benefits from it, rather than, have poor experience, have a harder relationship or time with yourself with the refeed. And then again, like you said, be blaming that on the experience rather than looking to have a real quality experience.
Sure. I agree completely. And again, I just stress, like, I wouldn't want to go climb Mount Everest on my own, or, sail around the world on my own, having never sailed a boat or something, and then I'm just going to go sail around the world. Well, yeah, and it's fine as long as you don't hit a cyclone or something, but then all of a sudden you're in serious trouble, and there's who are you going to call? It's too late. It's just too late. So I think, like, a guy once told me, everybody's got to make a living. There's a reason there's fasting supervisors, and that's because they're needed. That need's been identified. People supervise fast professionally. They got medical training in advance. They got fasting training separate from that. They hopefully have lots and lots and lots of experience as well. And a group of colleagues that they can call on, that they've developed over time. And you go, hey, I'm seeing something really weird. What do you know about this? So that I would never want to, I just couldn't ever recommend in good conscience tell people to go fast on your own.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I want to ask you a little bit more about, your upcoming retreat, what that looks like, when that is. But I also want to just ask, we've covered a lot of ground here. It's gone a lot longer than I thought, actually. So I really appreciate your time and all that you shared. Is there anything in closing around this subject that you would like to add?
I just don't think people should be afraid of fasting. I think it is a utilizable part of a health regime, and that most people probably would benefit from. Most people actually would probably benefit from a fast, because we know what most people's food and lifestyle background is, and to overcome some of that through fasting would be a smart move. But it still has to be on a one at a time basis. There's plenty of people contact me and I go, no, fasting's not for you.
Yeah.
At least at this time, fasting is inappropriate. Let's wait 5 years and build your health first, or whatever it is, or it may never be appropriate for you. But I don't think fasting is something to be feared any more than flying in an airplane, but, and it has appropriate uses. It's kind of like dentists, like when you don't need them, they're useless to you, but when you need them, they're lifesavers. Yeah. So I feel the same way about fasting. I've seen a lot of lives saved, a lot of needless suffering ended. I used to have a big bucket in my fasting retreat where people would throw their glasses, because so many people ended up not needing their glasses. Just a simple little thing. It's not why they came to fast, but afterwards they go, I don't need these anymore. Because they're all things vectored towards health, including vision. So that was kind of cool. I'm gonna run a program this year. It's a 4-week program. We're gonna start. We got an extra day in February this coming year, so we're gonna start on the 29th.
A leap year.
And run all the way until the 28th of March, and people go home then. But I've got a little retreat center that where I ran my last fast as well. It's not in a touristy spot. Nobody goes there. It's actually mostly pineapple plantations, for miles and miles of plantations in the immediate area. But it's a small residential zone, and really quiet, a lot of nature. It's not high in the mountains, so it's not super cold. It's not down near the beach, so it's not uncomfortably hot or buggy. It's pretty much spring every day. It's maybe low 80s every day and high 50s every night. It's just like comfortable. 60s every night, sometimes 60s, and got a little swimming pool and a little fish pond and lots of good views and big meeting area. And we're just going to do it. I'm not stressing length. I mean, my idea for fasting is always people should fast as long as necessary, but as short as possible. I want the fast to be as short as possible. I want to have plenty of time for recovery. If we need to fast again, we always can, but a lot of times a short fast will do the job, and you might as well just get it done with a short fast. I have fasted people as short as 36 hours with great success for various conditions. And sometimes only 2 or 3 days is all the fast that's required for some conditions. And then they can develop their eating habits and get in some really good fitness training. And I've got a full gym down there, so we work. And
I've been there and worked a bit.
yeah, and have fun doing it, and help people develop. Everybody designs the physique that they would like to look like 5 years from now, and then we develop a fitness program to help them reach that physique. And if they're not even interested in their physique, then we say, okay, what are your performance goals for 5 years from now? What do you want to be doing as far as your fitness performance? And then we develop the routine to help them with that, whether it's sports or whether it's just functionality or whatever it is, weight gain, weight loss. It's a really valuable time. There's going to be 8 or 9 very special people having a good time with me down in Costa Rica for the month of March.
Sounds awesome. Well, I'm hoping to see you out in Costa Rica around then too. I'll be out there, of course, myself.
I'm looking forward to seeing one end of that or the other. I don't know, whichever one you say is good for you.
Whichever one works, absolutely. Me too. And I know I can attest to the quality of food and the amazing food that will be in the feasting portion of your retreat.
Oh, absolutely.
So, where can people learn more about this?
I've got a page up on the fasting program on my Food and Sport website. They can just go to Food and Sport and then click on retreats, and it'll take them right to my fasting.
I'll link that.
Sorry?
I'll link that below.
Oh, bless.
Yeah,
and,
make that easier for people.
Yeah, but you just go to Food and Sport, click on retreats. It takes you right to the fasting page, and they can learn all they want. If anybody has questions or they want to know if it's appropriate for them, they can email me. Give them my actual email address if you're willing to as well, Chris. And anybody who wishes to email me and ask me questions, please feel free to do so. I'm happy to. Whether you fast or not, that doesn't matter. If you have questions and you want to know, ask away.
Sounds awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks again. I know it's New Year's Eve here and there. You're out in England, and I'm going to air this for New Year's start to my YouTube videos. And I really appreciate all the time you put in here, and I hope everyone really learned a lot.
Bless you so much, man. I just think the world of you, and I want you to succeed in every way. I look forward to getting a chance to give you a hug, rather than this cyber hug. Yeah.
This is our 3rd or 4th interview, which I'll post all the other interviews below as well. This is our first cyber interview. Always they've been done in person, and next time I see you, we'll do another fun video because always learn a ton.
Fantastic.
Always appreciate you.
Best. You're so cool. I'm glad to see you in such a beautiful setting, no less.
Yes, this is pretty nice. This picture is actually Costa Rica. It's I'm unfortunately not there right now, but I will be. But this is Costa Rica too. So this is the kind of scene you can see when you go out there.
So usually I tell people go to health, but tonight I'd just say think fast.
Yeah, think fast. I love it. I love it. Well, much love to you, Doug, and your whole family. I'm wishing you guys a very happy new year, an amazing start to 2020, and I'll be seeing you out there in Costa Rica, and hopefully a whole bunch of other people to enjoy this and feel connected to reach out and learn more. So
thank you.
Thanks again, as always, wishing you go to health, go fast, and as always, wishing you much peace, love, and seasonal fruit. All right, we're set. All right, let's get into this. Let's smash this out of the park.
Now you start.
I'll do the starting part.
It's like my favorite knock-knock joke. Have you ever heard my favorite knock-knock joke?
No.
You start.
Yeah. I like that one actually quite a lot. I do like that one quite a lot. I might have to use that. That might have to go into the outtakes of the video here.
Fasting. Hope you enjoyed the video and learned a ton.
Ooh, don't forget to check out my raw recipes playlist in the top left, the video just for you in the top right, subscribe for more videos in the bottom right, and get your 3 free ebooks in the bottom left. Grab my free iPhone app, comes with free recipes, common fruit and vegetable calorie breakdown, a food combining chart, shopping cart function, and much, much more.